Okay.
And 3, 2, 1, we are live. Zen Life Dan.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thank you.
Ashley, for having me on.
Yeah.
Okay.
How are you today, Dan?
Today's going great. It's been a busy, productive day, but yeah, I'm just basically getting settled in. Today was the first day, probably in 7 to 10 days, that I haven't worked out. So it's kind of nice to give my body a nice little relax.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't worked out. I go up and down with working out. Like I don't know if you I don't know if you've heard, but I used to do CrossFit really competitively. Got super sucked into it like in an obsessive way. Totally like narrow focused on competing and being the best and just in a very unhealthy way. And so after that, I kind of took a hiatus from working out because I realized my relationship with it wasn't healthy. And now I'm trying
Mm.
to find that healthy relationship and vibe with it again. So trying to do it not to just be the best at something, but find the flow. So I've took
Finding the
a
flow,
long
that
rest.
that's the key. I was just on a walk about 15 minutes ago, and I realized just the importance of finding the flow in everything you do, whether it's your sport, your business, your relationship to your thoughts. As long as there's flow, and we'll get into this when we talk about autophagy, but autophagy is just clearing your cells so there's no cellular constipation. And if there's no constipation, everything's flowing smoothly. You can take more in, you can give more back, and it's just an equal exchange. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I also feel like that flow state, it has to do with removing expectation. That's something that I've been dealing with even in the minutes and hours before this podcast. I go through these weird fluctuations of feeling like, okay, I can be myself and like I'm just going to go in and then feeling like I have this weird expectation like there's lots of people that are going to be tuning in and like what do I need to be? But I feel like it's surrendering that expectation that you feel like others have of you and then translating it onto yourself and then just letting whatever happens happen, right? Way woo way, right?
Yeah, Wei Wu Wei is like the first time I heard of Wei Wu Wei, you look at it and you think, oh, well, you're just being lazy. But really, what it is it's narrowing down. Like, I mean, if you really go all the way, you don't have to do anything ever. And then we just kind of backtrack from there. So, as I'm going on like night walks and listening to the Tao Te Ching, I'm basically seeing the torment of man or woman and just the mental stress that people succumb themselves to and sign up for. And it's just because they have not weighed at all. They've just, there's just so much going on and just running their minds that um, they can start to, if they could, or when they could start to undo things, it just becomes so much easier and there's just less to manage. I mean, have you ever tried cooking like 3 or 4 or 5 different dishes at once? It's
Yeah.
like it's like that sometimes with our thoughts, and yeah, that's basically I think the benefit of Wei Wu Wei.
Well, for people listening that haven't heard of it, I screenshot this because I really liked how you described it. So, it translates as doing not doing and it is the dedicated passivity to all actions that do not arise naturally. And then you said in other words, it's doing only what serves your higher self and is in alignment. So, how do you think there's a weird balance I think a lot of us are trying to find in just letting everything go, going with the flow, doing only what arises naturally. But then at the same time, us humans want to strive for things. We have goals and you almost have to put stuff in your calendar to achieve those goals. Otherwise, I mean, do you? Like where's the balance?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and that's definitely up to each and every person. But like for myself, I think it's such a balance you have to always have, and you can kind of figure out where that line is metaphorically drawn in your silent meditation or whatever yoga practice you do, because you have to be the one to draw that line, because only so much will arise naturally, and you're just trying to balance, okay, well, what do I want to strive for? What do I want to plan for? What do I want to like capture maybe in this moment that arises naturally that might be good for the future? So let me write that down. And yeah, you're just trying to juggle like what's worth holding yourself accountable to all the time. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for that, but it's just up to each person to kind of figure that out for themselves.
I relate to that because what I did recently, I realized my to-do list, it was just wearing me into the ground. Like it was killing me because what I was doing was I was putting all of these things that I felt like I should be doing, like workout, stretch. Like I would even put like drink this juice, eat at this time, like trying to, do my fasting intervals. Like I loaded myself up. I would even put like read. Sometimes I'm OCD. I would even put like shower sometimes. Not that I forget to shower, but I had so much stuff in there that I was just loading myself up. And I felt like I was getting run into the ground. Like I was exhausted at the end of the day. I didn't feel fulfilled. Like, and I was talking to my husband and I was like, what do I do? And then he suggested, he's like, surrender everything on your to-do list except for your job and the podcast because this is a new project I'm passionate about. Just those two things. Everything else, let it arise naturally. And I've been doing that for 2 weeks or so. And I have to say, I feel so much better. When I want to go for a run, I go for a run. When I want to stretch, I stretch. When I want to read, I read. But it's not like read 30 pages every single day at a certain time. And I feel like that balance I'm finding, it's kind of what you're saying, drawing that metaphorical line yourself. I feel the difference already.
That's so good. Yeah, it's like I can relate to you too because there was a time in my life where I really wanted to like get get myself together, like get my life together, get it like bring it all together. And so I was planning out every 5 minutes of my life, and I showed it to my friend Taryn, who's actually helping me now with business. And it was just a funny thing that actually connected us because he's very, stick to the structure. So he found value in that, but that was just like way over the top. But I've definitely like I think swung to a lot of ends of the extreme, just to see what is it like if I hold my whole day to like a 5 minute interval where I'm my own boss and I have to be accountable to me. Like, what kind of results come from that?
Yeah, I think the CEO of Amazon, I forget his name. I can't think of it, but I think he literally has his days to a 5 minute schedule, and it works for him. And I think it just comes back to what works for you, and it's knowing yourself and tapping into yourself and figuring out what type of person you are. And that's what I think everything has to do with. And I see a lot in society. There's everybody kind of attaches to like the new fad, or there's a new diet, or there's a new way to manage your time. And I feel like a lot of people are just attaching onto all these other programs that other people have created where it can work for you. They created it because it worked for them, but just because it works for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And I just think that people underestimate the power of just tapping into themselves and figuring out, just listening to themselves for the answers. I even still struggle with that sometimes, but there's so much that lies within.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a really powerful place you can be at if you can trust yourself. And I did a couple IGTVs on this where just kind of sharing my story where I never really was able to trust myself and always was seeking other people's validation for just even little things on what I should do, or should I go to college or should I not, or should I move to Arizona? And I was just kind of blowing in the wind. But um, once again, swinging to that end of the extreme and really just not trusting myself forced me to be like, hey, I got to get it together. And then it developed the heart and intuition to where you just start to know what's
How would
right.
you describe like developing that relationship with trusting yourself? Because I even tried to do an exercise last night. It was funny. I was just kind of feeling a little weird and I brought out a big piece of paper and I was like, what makes me feel safe within? I was trying to do some brainstorming and trying to come to some answers, but there's still that tangible feeling inside of like, still need that validation. I still get all excited when someone else tells me I did a good job. It's like that's what validates me. I'm really seeking that inner power of like, I don't need that. I know I did a good job, period, or I know what my truth is, period. And so how would you explain in the best way that you could that shift to from not trusting yourself, you said you were on the other end of the spectrum, to now feeling like you have that trust within?
Yeah, and I'm the same way. Like I still like the validation. I'll still give validation. I think that's like very valuable. Um, but it, I guess like when I would listen to those people that would tell me what to do, or other people's opinions, or should I go to this restaurant or that restaurant, because I couldn't make the decision myself. And I guess just enough times of not being like fully happy, or like hearing a whisper of a voice in the back of my head that knew I should have done this, and it didn't play out the way I wanted it to, but I knew it would have. So that's the other. I mean, like if you want to get into like techniques and stuff, really just silent meditation. I love going to crystal shops and trying to connect with the different frequencies of stones. Um, Different types of music resonate at different frequencies that you just. It's like when you feel a vibe, or when you um, can like relate to someone's energy, you just know that they're part of your tribe, and all those things sort of add up after a while, and you just start to develop trust with yourself.
But see, how do you know what voice to listen to, right? Because I feel like sometimes I have so many voices in my head. It's like there's the voice of fear, there's the voice of truth, there's the voice of shame. There's all these different spectrums of voices. And sometimes I don't know which one to listen to. Like I can't distinguish between the truth. I mean, sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. So, I mean, is there, as you've been on this journey of kind of uncovering yourself within and your inner space, has your voice of truth become louder and you can clearly now distinguish it more often than you could before?
Yeah, I think so. I really do. And like to answer your question, like how, I think I would just say like paying attention and having awareness of situations that come up. And I know you're great at both. You pay attention and you have amazing awareness. So as you're on this journey too, and much like myself, I guess I'm constantly um, just it's very tough to describe, but I'm constantly shooting myself in the foot if I didn't listen to myself when I knew I should have. So I just pay closer attention, have as much awareness as I can, and just always try to apply that.
Yeah. So what because I'm reading your bio right now, this kind of little bio that you sent me, and I know you kind of basically did a 180 shift with your life. It sounds like that. I'll just quote you here that you were doing eating competitions, which is crazy because now you do fasting, right? So it's like one
Mhm.
end of the spectrum to the other. And you're eating meat every day. You said doing steroids, working 9 to 5, and now you did a complete 180, and you're very passionate about fasting, autophagy, a mucus-less diet, a lot of spirituality stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff that I want to talk about today. But what was it? Was there like a moment? Was there a transitionary period? What caused that shift?
Um, well, I guess it was a slow, gradual shift, but much like one of my recent IGTVs, again, the 180 shifts and I guess just trying to figure out my path has been very valuable to metaphorically flip through those channels of the life I wanted to live. Like, did I want to go down the route of professional eating competition or doing steroids or all that? Like, I got to kind of feel them each out, and I would always switch and try different things, which I thought was like a detriment. Like, no, don't do that. Like, stick to one thing. That's what people told you to do. And so all the while I'm early on this journey, I'm beating myself up the whole time because I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this. I should figure out one thing, stick to that one thing like everybody's telling me. And now in retrospect, like it was actually really nice to live those different versions of Dan to figure out what is most true to me. And I feel like people who are trying to figure out the same thing for themselves, they might get caught up in what voices of people, what voices of society tell them they should be and what they should do. And it just comes down to, like, my advice is just try shit. Because as you try shit, you're going to know real quick whether it's you're able to stick with it or not, or if it's true to yourself or not.
I feel like a lot of us have a problem with, I mean, I'll speak for myself, but I see it in a lot of places, is the instant gratification. It's like if you try something new and it's the beast of comparison. Like I always talk about, you compare yourself to somebody that's already been doing it for 5 years and you're like, I'm not where they are and I can't ever see myself there. So I'm going to quit. And like you, I'm a huge advocate for trying everything. But if you feel a passion for something, I feel like there's a certain amount of grit and grind that things take. And I'm trying to find this myself where I beat myself up all the time. So if I'm not like skyrocketing and like growing like crazy, or if I'm not seeing instant gratification, I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. But there's a grind
Mm-hmm.
to things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like you'll always run into the grind with things, and as you like find the things you're more passionate about, like you on this podcast right now, I can tell you're just so passionate about it. Much like me, I love having these types of talks. If this podcast got no more than 10 subscribers for the next year or two, who the fuck cares? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be something that you love doing, and you love sharing, and you're bringing value to people. And that's another thought too, because as you find your passion and you share it and you bring value to people, now you just entered into like value giving without even really setting out to do that.
I know.
That's kind of cool.
It's, it is. And it's weird. And like, I feel like, especially, about 5 or 6 months ago, I started doing these little, the little IG videos. And it's weird what I think your internal climate versus an external perception of you. It's interesting to me how much it conflicts, because from the moment I started doing the IG videos, and then even now in this podcast, I get the feedback I get pretty consistently is people seem to love that I am genuine or I am authentic, or they get an authentic vibe or a feel from me that I'm truly myself. But the inner war I have in my own head with every single content that I really, every piece of content or every single video or every single thing that I release, I always have this voice of like, are you being your true self? Like, are you being genuine? Are you being authentic? Like, is that me? And it's so interesting how I feel like we just beat ourselves up in our head and we're thinking we're the opposite. And even like in these podcasts, sometimes in my head, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I sound like an idiot. I sound dumb. Like, and I'm having all this internal dialogue. But then when I listen, I'm like, I don't sound that bad. Like it was just me. It's like these inner voices, man. They drive me nuts sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. And I used to like really listen to them. And don't get me wrong, I'm like you, I face it every day, but I just click post anyways. And what's crazy is I still feel it at the same level. Like the level of that didn't go down, but the level of fuck itness went up. I'm doing it anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was talking to my last podcast. I was talking to Nikki about how it's crazy how you can release something in the Instagram world and you release it and you're proud of it and you're like, yes, like I am proud of this piece of content. And then all of a sudden, or at least for me, like I'll get two or three like weird comments or people that are like, give me criticism. And then all of a sudden I'm like, everything shifts. I'm like, I shouldn't have posted that. Like this is dumb. Why did I even think that was cool? Why would I even want to post something like that? And it's weird how you can get that shift from just a couple people. And I think that goes back into trusting yourself and not needing that external validation. But it's something I deal with like all the time. And I don't even want to post anything controversial anymore because it's like so much energy because I get wrapped up in it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I can relate to that so much. Um, but I wanted to talk a little bit. Remember when I was telling you I broke down the 5 minutes of my day for a while?
Yes.
So going to Peru for me was the complete opposite of that because like right now I'm on a pretty good schedule as far as business goes, and I get up and I do my work and I work out and come home, and it's a nice schedule. And when I went to Peru, it was a complete surrender of any type of structure because the only thing on your schedule each day was either a ceremony for San Pedro, or if it was a day off from ceremony, it was going to the market or going to town, and that was pretty much it. So it was really it like went against my like nature to always want to like get things done, to be able to just like relax into whatever happens.
Did you feel resistance when you were there? And did that resistance naturally kind of subside as the days went on and you fell into the not doing mode?
No.
No.
I don't think so.
So you always had that little voice that was kind of like, you should be doing something. You should be doing something. You should be producing, or you should be checking, or you should be, whatever.
Oh yeah, like oh I should do a story right now, or oh I should work on a post, or
God, isn't that
make
crazy?
some goji berry tea.
It's like it's crazy the concept of like us being like attached to these things. Like I sometimes I because I remember you did a post when you first got to Peru and you were like, I'm trying to balance like sharing stuff but like being in the moment. And for me, it's so silly. Like when I'm somewhere cool, because I don't really go cool places very often. I'm like a hermit these days. I work from home. I straight up don't leave my house sometimes for like a week or two plus, um, except for like to walk my dog or go outside. But even some days I don't even leave my house. And um, when I go somewhere cool, it's like, share it with Instagram. But I'm like, this is so weird. It's so silly. Like, why do I feel this impulse to show people where I'm at? Like, is this ego? Like, I'm just sitting here, like, everybody, like, cheese.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, that sounds awesome that you never leave your house. I just started ordering groceries online and they
I
get delivered.
saw. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know how awesome it is. Sometimes, like, I feel like I'm getting weird back pain because I like to sit in my living room on my computer, on my laptop, which is totally the opposite of ergonomic. It is so bad for my back. And, people think the work from home life is like the dream. And I would never want to commute. I would never want to trade it in for commuting an hour, hour and a half each way. But, something people don't think about, and I hear a lot of like stay-at-home moms say the same thing, and I totally get their struggle now. My office is my house. Not only that, the area that I relax, this is personal choice, the area I relax in my living room is also my work. So there's no separation. So you have to mentally separate, which is great practice, especially if one day the goal is to work for yourself, but it's not the easiest thing to do. And I didn't realize that, but I'm learning.
Hmm. That's awesome. There's no separation between work and play.
No, I need more play. I think that's the answer. Like I don't have separation right now, but I don't think play really exists that much. So it's like I need to find the play first, then I can figure out the separation.
Yeah, I went through probably well last year the most as I was transitioning into just I guess like a normal Instagram account where I would share where I'm at and things like that, to trying to share more of a message. I would ask myself each and every post, I would have maybe a story or a post written up, and as I would be like all excited ready to send it, I would try to imagine myself as a third person finding this and being like, did this add value, or is this just like an ego share, an ego flex?
I like that. That's interesting because you were even telling me last night when we were talking how you thought it was cool that I was doing this podcast because you've always wondered what it's like to hang out with you, like as yourself. So to be able to look at yourself from the outside and wonder that, because like I can listen back to myself, and that's kind of a similar concept, right? Where you envision yourself as another person looking at your content, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, huh, I never really thought of it that way. That's a cool little practice. I think I'm going to start doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if I was just hanging out with myself, it would just be silence. There'd be nothing to say. It'd be the most boring relationship ever.
I know, right? Remember we were joking yesterday. We're like, we're just gonna sit here and stare at each other. Because I was curious how this was gonna go because, like you said, you're typically a listener, and I'm typically a talker, and I'm supposed to be interviewing you. Technically, like my podcast, I really like them to be conversational. I don't really anything that's super structured or like feels professional freaks me out because I just feel like I attach a lot of expectations to it and it's not free flowing, it's not relaxed. So I really like these to be conversational, but it was really funny that you are a listener and I'm a talker and I'm like I hope I don't like, inadvertently like steal the spotlight and like start just babbling because I can tend to do that.
Listen back to the podcast and be like, Dan asked me every question. I didn't ask him anything.
I'd have you share it and be like, Dan, so this is the podcast I did with Ashley Rothstein. Yeah. So I want to hear more about Peru though. I want to hear because I am still I'm nervous when it comes to psychedelics. I've had two experiences with LSD. I've had a couple weird experiences with psilocybin mushrooms on a microdose level, but like I was in a weird time where I wasn't very conscious with them. So I've had a couple experiences, but except for the one large normal dose experience I had with LSD, I've never dabbled into like San Pedro, ayahuasca, DMT, and the ones that I would deem maybe a little bit more intense. I mean, you can get really intense with psilocybin and LSD. I don't want to discount that, but I have a curiosity with San Pedro and ayahuasca. And mainly, I'm like terrified to purge and I'm terrified to like step into my shit head first. And I'm pretty sure you probably did both of those, but I really, I liked your analogy. You said of ayahuasca being more of a connection to the cosmos and San Pedro being more of a grounding experience to Mother Earth. And that's why I was like, I'm probably going to do San Pedro because I do not know if I'm ready for like a galactic send off into the cosmos. So I was like, naturally, like, I'm probably going to like want to do San Pedro. So if you, because you've done ayahuasca, so if you can kind of speak on your ceremonies in Peru with San Pedro and maybe how that those were different from ayahuasca.
I did the ayahuasca last August, and that was my first time with that. And that was a back-to-back night ceremony in Tucson, Arizona, which is about 2 hours south of where I am in Phoenix. And I was, it's like, it's so funny, not really funny, but it's just so interesting how they do it, where you kind of get to choose how much you want to drink. So you'll go up, or the shaman will call you up, and you get to decide on a scale for ayahuasca. This was scale 1 to 5. Do you want just 1/5 or 2/5 or the whole thing? And so I think I went with like 3 out of 5. Laid back down, waited. Felt a little something, but nothing too much. About 45 minutes later, I went back up and did, I think it was another 3. And then I don't know if it was like a different batch or they both caught up to me, but I like really started to feel it. And the thing with ayahuasca is, first of all, it's a nighttime ceremony. So the reason it's a nighttime ceremony is because the shaman actually sings what's called Icaros, and Icaros is where he's bringing in the spirits of certain plants. So this is what's really cool about shamans. They have done what's called dietas. So they've dieted, they basically fasted aside from like rice and I think plantains. They've dieted only a certain plant. So they just eat rice and plantains on one plant so they can learn about and feel the essence of the plant. And there's a certain song with every plant. So as the shamans giving ayahuasca to everyone, they can call in certain plant spirits that are either going to help raise this person's energy, lower it, or basically like give them what they need to heal. And I had no concept of this until I was blasted off through the Maloka high on ayahuasca, and the shaman calls in a spirit of what I saw so clearly as like a boa constrictor, anaconda, snake. And it was just like, it was crazy because every thought that I had led to its manifestation in thought world. So as soon as I thought a snake, the snake was right in front of me. As soon as the snake was in front of me, it was like rubbing up against me. And before you know it, I was getting eaten by this snake in this thought world. And
So you,
I don't
and
really,
it was like it was happening. Like it was just like right now, if I were to see a snake and be eaten by a snake right now, it's, I mean, of course you're, obviously I know you're in an altered state, but it was that real.
it was that real. And it was because this is the power of the Icaros, the songs. It's because of the song that he was singing. So yeah, shamanism is a whole realm that I have so much respect for because through the ayahuasca or San Pedro, it puts you in the altered state where you are receptive.
Mm.
So,
I've heard Joe Rogan talk about there's like certain songs, certain frequencies that you can play, which this is reminding me of that. If like you're having a bad trip, there's certain frequencies and certain songs that can bring you in that altered state, but it can bring you to another place and out of that bad space. So it's probably something similar to what you're describing.
mm-hmm. Yeah, these shamans can do so much. They can clear your energy, they can brighten it, darken it, whatever. It was really powerful. That was sort of the essence of my or the big takeaway from my ayahuasca experience was the boa constrictor, and it actually turns out that that's a symbol for a lot of really good things, even though we associate snakes with, I don't know, fear and things like that. But it's a good thing to be able to see the snake or the serpent on ayahuasca in San Pedro.
I think my brother would be, I think he's watching it right now. He'd be freaking out. Like snakes are his phobia. So if he was being eaten by one, I think he would probably lose his shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Oh, your second night
um,
with ayahuasca, how was, did you have a powerful experience as well?
mhm. Yeah, I had a really powerful experience. But remember, I fasted for I think 7 days, like the week prior, so I was like really cleared out, just because I was on my like fasting kick as I was just really learning about it. So I did the 7 day fast, but I also was prepping for ayahuasca because I didn't want to be like gunked down with a lot of physical and emotional stuff. So I wanted it to be like a blissful experience. So the second night, I had to leave the Maloka just because the purging energy of people just vomiting and releasing everything. I think I had released all of that in the 7 day fast, like slowly over each day. So I just went outside under the stars, did some yoga, did some Wim Hof breathing, came back in, was like, what's going on, guys? How's everybody feeling?
I don't know how, like I admire hearing you, like I don't know. There are certain people, I feel like we're all different. I was actually talking to somebody earlier today and we got into a talk about DMT, and he's taken DMT so many times. He's like, yeah, I was just, I kept taking hits because I was trying to get to a certain place. And he used to grow mushrooms growing up. Him and his family, they lived on property. So he's like, I've probably taken like 20 grams of mushrooms before. He just used to eat handfuls, and he smokes cannabis all the time and he's cool with it. Like he's just chill. And I'm like, geez, like I could never picture myself as being that chill with something, like just being like, and to hear you say like, oh, you just did a 7 day fast, and did ayahuasca, like during my first 72-hour fast, I felt like I was going to lose my shit simply not eating food. I can't imagine not eating food for 4 more days and then doing an ayahuasca ceremony and getting eaten by a boa constrictor.
That's exactly what happened.
I just can't imagine. So I just sit here and I admire you. Like people like you give me something to shoot for in regards to like my relaxation and just diving into myself and knowing that things are okay. So
Mm-hmm.
how was ayahuasca then? So it's a nighttime ceremony and San
Mm-hmm.
Pedro's during the day.
That's right. Yeah. So once again, ayahuasca nighttime, spirits, cosmos, San Pedro, which was, by the way, the only plant medicine me and Dwayne were doing when we were in Peru. We didn't do ayahuasca. It was all San Pedro.
And that's
We
from a
did full.
cactus, right?
Yep, it's San Pedro cactus, and basically that ceremony starts at 9 a.m. and you are just rocking all day for about 8 to 10 hours, and you're not really blessed off into the cosmos. Like it doesn't really show you the universe and how everything is created. It kind of puts you in touch with the plants and the intelligence in the plants, the spirits. We were surrounded by mountains to take in the moose, the mountain spirits, and it's really just, I guess, bringing the true awesomeness of the 3D realm and just really making you appreciate that and really connecting with that so much so that you just want to like laugh and cry. A lot comes up. Like I purged the first day, and that was it for me for purging. But yeah, it's similar to ayahuasca, but completely different at the same time.
So, would you say one is more introspective than the other? Because what I hear a lot with psilocybin versus LSD, for example, because I read a lot on that, is that people say psilocybin is more introspective and LSD is more of an external kind of like you see lots of visuals and it's you don't dive as much within. So, did you find one more introspective than the other?
I think San Pedro was a little bit more introspective, a little bit more in your body, and you're able to like still generate your thoughts. You can still be functional. You can go to the kitchen and get some fruit. You can go to the bathroom in waves where there'll be moments where like you can't do that, and then a couple minutes later you can if you just, I guess, take a deep breath and focus enough.
I know that the psychedelic realm is no joke. The largest part of my LSD experience that I remember was like losing the concept of time and losing the ability to understand if I was properly caring for myself or not. So if I didn't understand hydration, I didn't understand eating, and I realized in that space how much my hypochondria affects my life because I'm constantly consciously thinking like when do I drink water? When do I eat instead of listening to my body? And in the experience, I lost the ability to do that. And when I lost that ability and lost that control, I freaked the hell out and I panicked. And I realized that was my door that I did not walk into. If I could have just taken that trust fall and just been like, this is okay. Like I don't need to do anything, but I held on to that thought and that idea and that narrative, and it took me down a not so pleasant road for about 20 minutes or so. And it's a scary place when you're in that altered state.
Right. Yeah, and what a lot of people say about plant medicines, and I guess you could say for any psychedelic in that matter, like it's going to show you what you need to be shown or give you the experience that you need to experience. So much like I use the swinging one way to the extreme or the other analogy, it kind of forces you to feel like the what you were feeling so that next time I guess you just be aware of that and you would know like, hey, if this is happening, or you just swing less that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what cannabis does for me. I actually have a quote that I got from you. It's a kind of a good segue because cannabis for me, it helps me see what I need to see. It like brings stuff to the surface that I feel like is sitting underneath for,
Yeah.
you know, pretty much dormant constantly. But you wrote something about cannabis on your page and you said, it brings to my attention the importance of breathing in fully, the right type of air, drinking the right type of water, mitigating EMFs and 5G, and it usually brings about a motivation to fast, cleanse, or do fruits and juices only for an extended period. What I really found interesting with that is when I smoke or consume cannabis in some way, I like my phone is the devil. Like phones and screens, and I used to think I was the only one with that, and I would like it's I repel it. And then when I read your thing about EMFs, I'm like, wow, like how do you like you feel that too with EMFs? Like, do you feel the heat of EMFs when you're high?
I feel something with them. I don't know. I just instinctually I know that, like for me, the phone thing I can relate to. It would cause some anxiety for me. I wouldn't really know necessarily how to show up in that state, but that's why I just don't do cannabis much at all. Um, but yeah, I feel something with the EMFs for sure. If I've been on my phone, like holding it in my right hand all day, I'll start to feel soreness in my muscles in my hand. That's not related to just the thumb action of texting. It's something more. And I'll also add to that that I don't know if you've used the new iPhone headphones that are Bluetooth
Mm-mm,
earpods.
no.
Basically, the earpods they're just wireless, and you put them in. If you remove one just an inch, like if somebody were to be talking to you, it's actually really cool because you could be like, "Hey, what did you say?" But if you move it an inch, it shuts off. So there's a constant connection between your head
Oh,
that it's aware of.
so it's like an imaginary line, like going through your brain. That's
Like a sagittal section, like right at your pineal gland, basically.
oh, shit. More stuff to just fuck us up. Oh,
Yeah, but I try to take it all with a grain of salt. Just try not to let the anxiety of it like add to it, because the more awareness you have, the more crazy we can drive ourselves. And I was kind of faced with a choice of, well, what do I do with all this knowledge? Like last summer, as I was really just diving deep on all the rabbit holes with 5G and just all the stuff that's going on, you can take it for what it's worth and still be functional, or you can just not. And either way is just a decision that you have to make. But I try to always have people not invite more chaos into their life. So if you become aware that something's harmful, use it less, but like don't let the thought of it just like drive you absolutely crazy.
yeah, I think there's a beauty to not giving in to the whole black and white concept of things, right? And just looking at them for what they are and not necessarily forbidding something or saying, I'm going to do something every single day the rest of the year. I feel like the extremes are really what get people in weird positions because any sort of extreme condition that you put on yourself, I feel like you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. And I used to do that a lot when I was transitioning into eating better. And this is actually probably a really good segue kind of into the whole fasting, juicing part. I know lots of people are, my mom in particular, she's really excited to hear from you and about autophagy and fasting and stuff. But what I would do is like, I put harsh conditions on myself. Like I'm never going to eat this and this and this again, or I'm not going to eat this for 2 months, whatever it was. And then I didn't leave any room for error. And then when I didn't leave any room for error, I just I self shame, self, guilt and all this negative self talk. And then you just feel like shit already on top of feeling like shit. And I'm trying to really move away from extremes.
Yeah, you actually worded that so well. So many people will feel like shit for feeling like shit, and it's just that could snowball forever. So let's like nip it in the bud right there and like not cause more pain than we need to. And another way of saying that is like have compassion for yourself. Like you're doing the best you can always, and everybody's really doing the best they can with the knowledge that they have. So you had a great word for it earlier. The beast of comparison. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I
I
always
like
say that. Yeah.
yeah, I like that. So the beast of comparison is not so much of a beast if you just know that you're on your own journey, and everybody there's always going to be somebody ahead of you, there's always going to be somebody behind you, and it's like how well can you lend a hand to the person one step below you.
Yeah, my friend Rex has been telling me lately. He taught me this mantra that he's been using. I actually applied it to my life. It's so simple. Just welcome. Welcome. And with anything, lately I've been trying, if I'm having a little bit of a panicky feeling, if I feel weird symptoms in my body, if I feel like a weird mood coming on, I really just try to stop and say, welcome. And as silly and simple as it sounds, the more that just welcome whatever is coming, and I know that it's here for a reason, the less weight I feel of it, the less resistance I have, which then causes the feeling to pass way sooner than it would be if I'm sitting there like, fuck, no, like, no, no, I don't want this. Like, stop, go away, go away, go away. And then when by doing that, you're causing your resistance to just skyrocket, which causes the problem that you want to go away to go in the other direction.
For sure. And I have this analogy. So when I was growing up, I don't know why I always thought I would get arrested, but I thought I would get arrested one day and I would be
Wait,
handcuffed.
you just thought you would get arrested. That's so funny.
I figured I'd just at some point be arrested. And if I had my hands cuffed behind my back and I was like chained, like ball and chain down to something in a jail cell, and I had an itch on my forehead, what would I do? Like,
You
and
literally
that
ran through this hypothetical, like,
oh,
that's
all the time.
wow. That's I don't really have any words like for that hypothetical, like just being in jail, and if you had an itch, what would you do with it? What did you conclude? What would you do with it?
I would just always use any itch that I had as a test to try not to itch it, just in case I was ever in that scenario. So I would like build up my strength to not itch.
Wow. So you fought that impulse.
I fought that impulse.
Do you still
Yeah.
like when you have an itch now, do you still like try to fight the impulse? Like do you just still like, nope, nope, I'm not gonna do it?
No, not as much anymore. I'll just itch it.
Okay. The practice is done. You got it. You got the skill down.
Yeah, I've already been arrested enough.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. I just looked at my you already been arrested enough. I wasn't even paying it. Have you really been arrested before?
Yeah, I'm surprised you just breezed right over
I
that.
really did because I was distracted, but then I brought myself back. Wow. What like do you want to share? You said nothing was off limits for this podcast.
I
So,
think one time in college, I got arrested for peeing when I was drunk in public. So I was handcuffed in the back of a cop car. But
I
I don't really
cannot
remember much
imagine
after that.
Zen Life Dan as I know him now. Cannot imagine him peeing drunk somewhere. It's so crazy when you meet people at a certain part in their life. And like I watch videos of myself. I was never a drinker, but oh my gosh, there was this video of me. Holy shit. I wish I could like play it right now like I wish I had a podcast like Joe Rogan where I could be like, "Jamie, just look it up," right? Um but
Hey, Jamie.
but there's this video of me plastered drunk. Like I barely even remember this. And we had gotten Taco Bell. Okay, so keep in mind, I was so drunk and we couldn't get into the place that we got into because we were with people that were also too drunk. So we couldn't get into the place that I'd been wanting to go to. And I was so sad. And then on the way home, for some reason, we determined that we weren't going to go to Taco Bell. And since we weren't going to go to Taco Bell, I start crying profusely in the car. just because we can't get Taco Bell. And then my husband was like, okay, we'll go to Taco Bell. So we went to Taco Bell. I went home and I had like makeup down my face from just crying because of the Taco Bell, but we got the Taco Bell and I'm laying in bed and laughing, and my husband is feeding me Taco Bell and it's all over my face with mascara coming down my face, and it is just a shit show. And I like look back at that version of myself, and the first time I watched that video was actually the other day, and I was like traumatized. I was like, I was so unconscious, like what the fuck was happening. It was bizarre.
Wow.
It was bizarre. That was my funny little drunk story there. Oh, those are
Dude,
some
I,
days.
I've been there, and you just haven't seen me presented in that light. Like, I'm a different person now. Earlier today, Dwayne and I were doing some business stuff, and he said, well, in a past life, I was a doctor, or in a past life, I was a scientist who studied how to get rid of cancer. And he did research like that earlier in his life. But we've all had versions of our actual life now that was like a complete past life. Like for me, college, that was a past life. So we were joking about that, like, hey, can you get credibility for something actually in a real past life?
Interesting. Yeah, you look back at your versions of yourself and it's like there's so much ignorance, right? Like I hear people all the time saying like when you're 30 you look back at yourself when you're 20 and you're like wow I was ignorant. When you're 40 you look back at yourself when you're 30 and you're like wow I was ignorant. So it's like terrifying to look back at myself now, or look back at myself when I'm 20 and be like, I didn't know shit. But it's like, now I know I'm going to look at myself 10 years from now, right now, and be like, I didn't know shit. And I'm like scared of that ignorance that I currently hold. I hate it. I'm like, I want to know everything. I live with that. It sucks.
Right, right.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
But I
Well,
have a feeling you're that what you're referring to in 10 years from now isn't going to be knowledge. It's going to be how well you can cope with not knowing everything, or just like how well you can just be okay with the enormous amount of knowledge that you actually have, but still know that there's so much that you won't have, and like a different type of serene feeling.
I agree with that. I also just think it's adjusting. It's like there's so many different phases of life where, you know, right now, for example, I have no fucking clue what it's like to be a parent. I have no idea. And it's like, I'm not going to know until I'm a parent. So it's like all these new phases of life going into, it's just learning how to adjust the person that you currently are to this new phase and then morph the two together into a new version of yourself, and constantly doing that with every new phase that you go into in life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know? So, well, I want to start talking about fasting stuff because I want to hear like you. I've been drinking my autophagy blend. I love it. I know my mom has been drinking it, but you just changed it. So I'm curious to hear about that. So if you want to start by just explaining for people that don't know what autophagy is, maybe how that relates to fasting, because I know it's a big part of fasting. The two are, you know, interconnected, right? And just start with that, and we can just see where that kind of naturally goes.
So really, when I first started fasting, I found out about the benefits of autophagy first. And here's the thing: this is what I used to say about fitness when I was doing a lot of personal training. It doesn't matter what gets you started working out. The fact of the matter is, it's a healthy practice for you. It doesn't matter what gets you started fasting, whether it's spiritual reasons or you want to clear the intestines or you want to clear the mind. There, you're gonna get a little bit of everything. You can't just be like, I'm going to start fasting for autophagy for 2 to 3 days or for 16 plus hours and not get a little sense of spiritual awakening. Like you just will. So, long story short, autophagy in a nutshell can be um, if this right here is a cell, within the cell, you have lots of things. You have the nucleus, the mitochondria. We see that lipids and proteins can very often get folded and they won't shape right. They won't fit into the cell right anymore. And the reason that happens is because your cells are constantly working to achieve a certain goal, primarily digesting. It requires a lot of energy. So when we give our digestion a break and we stop eating food, it gives the cellular, um, it gives the intracellular a chance to organize. And if anything is folded or not shaped right, it's going to use that as raw materials for new fuel and recycle it, clearing out the misshaped products inside the cell. And when you have that process happening over your whole body, it literally has the ability to get rid of disease, to make you look younger, to repair skin, to give you energy, to help the cells do what they do better over your whole body.
So your immune system, I think the statistic is it regenerates with every 72-hour fast. I think I heard it regenerates by like 30%, right? Like 30% of your immune system is like thrown away, like the old, parts that maybe weren't working as efficiently, and it gets completely regenerated with brand new cells. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And the reason that's happening is because you're also producing stem cells. So new cells are actually being regenerated as well. So you're getting repair of existing cells and you're regenerating other cells. So the immune system is going to be one of the most important systems that your body feels the need to regenerate. So that's going to be one of the first things that regenerates. And speaking on immune, if you look to nature, when an animal is sick, like a dog or cat or just even a wild animal, you'll notice they just don't eat. They just lay down, they hang out. And even look at kids when they're actually sick and they don't want to go to school that day. If you remember being really sick, you just want to lay around and you don't want to eat anything. It's because your body is actually sending that message to your brain and to your biology, hey, it doesn't make sense to eat right now because we're trying to fix what's going on.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, and when you say that, I mean this is kind of a separate topic that we'll probably get into later, but it just makes me think of how often that we eat when we really aren't hungry. How we're
Mm-hmm.
overeating as a society, but that's a different topic. So your autophagy blend. So since you explain autophagy, so that's the natural process that's happening in the body when you're fasting, right? So your autophagy, I think, I forget the statistics, but there's a certain percentage that it ramps up when you've hit 48 hours of a prolonged fast. And then there's a certain percentage at 72, and there's a certain percentage at like 5 day, right? Do you have those percentages?
Yeah, I've seen it all over the place. I've personally seen and noticed around hour 36, there's a pretty significant spike. And then when you go to hour 72, you get another pretty significant spike, but it's not like hour 36 and then it goes down. It's like hour 36 is pretty good and then it steadily keeps going up. Around day 5 to 7, it does start to slowly like in some people it might go down slowly, and some people it might keep going up because every body is different. But here's the thing most people don't know about autophagy. Autophagy is always happening in your body, even when you're eating, but it plays on how long you've been fasted and it just steadily goes up based on how long you've been fasted.
So then is that where intermittent fasting comes into play when let's just say an 8-16 or 16-8. I don't know if I said that backwards, but when you're fasting 16 hours and then eating 8 hours. So then if you're doing that consistently, your body is then used to ramping up the autophagy levels consistently, and then is that more does that affect compound? Does it become better and better and better for your body? Let's just say if you did it for 2 months versus 2 days.
Yeah, I would say so because consistency always wins in most things. But specifically with fasting, like you get a ton of autophagy if you do a 2 to 3 day fast, But if I would rather people do a daily intermittent fast of a 16/8, or if you want to go 24 and then only eat for 4 hours a day, that's amazing. Um, I would rather them do it daily than no intermittent fasting and then just 1, 2, or 3 day fast a month, because the compound effect of the daily is really, I think, going to outweigh any type of, I guess, if you want to call it damage that's done from constant feeding every day.
So no prolonged. So you would rather have somebody do the constant intermittent than prolonged. It's interesting you say that because my mom, she's been watching sure Dr. Rhonda Patrick. She's awesome, right? I love her. And my mom watched a podcast from her recently, and she said something along the lines of, I didn't watch it, so I'm just paraphrasing what my mom told me, but something along the lines of like, unless you have a purpose, so whether that be, you have an intention to do the prolonged fast, or you're an unhealthy person, like you're trying to heal some sort of chronic disease, there's really not as much benefit to doing that versus doing the intermittent fasting. So if you are a pretty balanced individual, you're a pretty healthy individual, and you don't have a reason to do the prolonged fast, I mean, the reason could be you want to get in touch with your spirituality. That's a reason too. But unless you have that reason or that dire need to do it, she recommends people just following the intermittent fasting, which really isn't that hard to do, surprisingly. Like people, like I saw your thing the other day where you said a little tip of just start eating at noon. I mean,
Yeah.
just start eating at noon.
Eating at noon, thinking breakfast technique. Because if you're doing that and you're eating from, let's say, like noon to 8, there's your 16/8. And you can, like, basically 16/8 to, you know, just adding 1 hour every day. Noon, then maybe the next week have it at 1, then maybe 2. And you're just steadily boosting that to really start to narrow eating window, autophagy. That's like the easy way. That's actually the way most people do it. Now, me just being me, I did it the opposite way. So I went no intermittent fast at all to, I think it was a 2 or 3 day fast, and I had my first meal that I broke on that second or third day. My first meal was after my work around like 8 o'clock at night, and I just stayed into that first meal at 8 o'clock at night after my workout.
So real quick, I don't, you're kind of breaking up a little bit. I caught some of that. Is this reception clear on your end? I just want to make sure we're in a good spot so people are hearing.
Yeah, right now it's good. Can you hear me clear as
Yeah,
I'm speaking
I
now?
kind of hear you, but it's kind of like you're like,
Okay.
So I just want to make sure we're in a good spot so it comes through good on the podcast and people can hear.
Okay. Okay. I think we should be good now. Let me know.
Okay, talk again.
All right. So basically I'll start explaining it again. There's two ways. Just cut me off if I'm not coming through clearly.
Yeah, you're very spotty in regards to like it's like you'll be like I don't even know if it's just me or if people on the live can see it too.
Okay.
But it's you're just kind of like your mic, the mic is off.
Yeah, I know. I was
Oh, okay.
asking Dwayne if he was online too.
Oh, okay. Oh, gotcha. All right. I think it's good now.
We're
So,
good now? Okay.
I think so. So let's keep going. What were you saying?
So there's basically two ways you can get started with intermittent fasting for autophagy. You can start with a 16/8 or skipping breakfast as your technique, and each day or each week steadily push that up an hour to where you have your first meal, and you're getting a narrower and narrower eating window. And the other way, which is the way that I ended up doing it myself, is do a prolonged fast and then break your fast in the afternoon on the day that you break it, and then stay in that rhythm of breaking your fast in the afternoon right around the same time, because the body is really responsive to circadian rhythms, including feeding. And it's really good to get into a habit of working out at the same time every day, breaking your fast at the same time every day, going to bed at the same time every day, waking up every day. And I know that's not like always reality, but for the body and for like functioning, that's the most but like beneficial way to structure your day.
And you did OMAD, right? So that's 1 meal a day. Weren't you? I think I saw somewhere that you did that.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on that right now. I joke around with Dwayne here and Taryn at the house that I have a 5 minute eating window because I just do like a shake. I eat really fast. So I'll do my shake and then any type of solid food that I do after my workout. It usually takes me about 15 or 20 minutes to eat.
And that's it.
And that's it. And it was only the first 2 or 3 days of that rhythm that was hard. So now my body really is used to it. I eat a lot of calories in that 20 minutes. So it's not like I'm just eating a little bit. I really eat a lot, but when I'm done, I'm done.
Damn. I mean, that's cool. I'm still trying to figure out a window, but what I something that I've noticed across the board every single day, like this is non-negotiable for me, is that if I don't start my day pounding liquids like waters, teas, the autophagy blend, celery juice, whatever, if I start my day eating, I feel like absolute dog shit the rest of the day. And I have this theory, and I mean, it's not really like a profound theory, like it's kind of common sense, but what I feel like is happening is, you're fasting overnight, sleeping, so you're already dehydrating yourself. And we have a problem with chronic dehydration, especially with all the food that we eat, because I think it takes a lot of water to digest. So what I'm thinking is like if you are already dehydrated, waking up, you further dehydrate yourself by eating if you're not consuming any liquids, and then you're spending your day drinking water, catching up to just be kind of at a decent level of hydration, as opposed to really hydrating yourself in the morning and then being in that nice baseline of a hydrated state. Oh, where did my window go? Oh, there we go. Being in that nice baseline, then eating food.
That's an amazing rhythm to be in. You're exactly right. And by the way, that's pretty much how my day goes too. Like I'll wake up, I like yerba mate tea, I like green tea, I like some sparkling waters, obviously the herbal autophagy blend and the new red blend, which I've been prototyping for like 3 weeks now. It's
I've
finally
been seeing.
finally ready to go.
Yeah.
Um,
So why did you? Two-part question to that. First of all, so you have an autophagy blend for people that don't know that are listening. I actually use it. I love it. I thought it was going to taste like crap because I'm skeptical of drinking like plants or eating plant stuff. Like I think it's deeply ingrained patterns from when I was a kid, like eat your vegetables. No, like I think it's some weird programming, but I thought it was going to taste not very good, but I love it. It's like that warm cinnamon winter drink. I love it. But why did you choose the herbs that you did for the initial blend? What caused you to do the new blend? And then to mix in there also, I know that plants have a certain synergy with one another. And there are some scientists will say don't take plants or herbs together because they kind of interact. Some interact well. So, did you factor that in when developing this blend, or do you have like any thoughts on how the herbs work together?
yeah, so the blend was developed as I was learning about autophagy, and I was also diving into cleansing and detoxification with Dr. Sebi. If you guys don't know him, Google him, Dr. Sebi. And also I was researching Dr. Morse. And so I had like these three main concepts in my mind, or well, two people, Dr. Sebi and Dr. Morse, and autophagy. And I was looking combination that I could do. So I found Dr. Sebi's favorite herbs. And he has like 8 to 10. Dr. Morse, same thing, about 8 to 10. And I was just doing those specific herbs, and I filtered out, didn't really boost autophagy or did the opposite, and they spiked insulin, which take you out of fast, doesn't work, and came up with just the autophagy blend from the two super. And I wasn't even thinking about really offering it to anyone. It was just for me to make fasting easier. And I was doing it, and I started telling people about fasting and what the great, and they're like, Dan, you're crazy. I,
I don't mean to interrupt you, Dan. This is awesome. I hear
Mhm.
a bits, but you're choppy again, and I know people want to hear it, so I don't want them to lose any good information.
Okay. Um, 1 second here.
I don't know what the solution is, but I'm embracing silence, everybody that's listening. I usually have a problem with silence and weird, unexpected things, but
Just give me 1 second here, Ash. Okay, 1 second.
cool. I'm embracing silence. Oh, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm embracing silence myself. Look at me.
Okay. How did the embracing silence go?
Oh, you did hear me. I was like, I wasn't sure if you could hear me. It was cool. It wasn't as
A little
bad
bit.
as my monkey mind would probably envision it to be.
Okay. Um, cut me off again. Get this information across.
Yeah,
I had these two amazing.
it's a little choppy again.
Okay, I'm gonna move in the house. If it sounds better or worse.
Okay.
Okay. So I
It's
was basic.
we can hear you most of it. Most of the time it's just the video that's choppy, and then sometimes the video gets a little choppy, and then your voice is kind of like so
Okay. So we'll go with this. For
okay.
So basically, what I did was I found those two doctors, researched their herbs, found the ones that promoted autophagy, got rid of the ones that didn't. And it was really helping me. So as I was telling people about fasting, like for fat loss, for spiritual benefits, they were explaining how crazy the idea of fasting sounded. And it wasn't adding up for me that it was because I had been taking the herbs, which made me feel full.
Yeah, no,
So,
I get that when I drink the autophagy blend in the morning. Like sometimes I'll wake up and I'm like, like I just feel like I want to eat right now, and it's like earlier than I normally would eat. I'm like something's going on, and then I drink the autophagy blend, and I'm like I'm not that hungry anymore. Like this is pretty cool.
yeah, and it sounds crazy, but it really makes you feel full. I haven't found anything as good at making you feel full than these herbs, and it's not really something I can take too much credit for because it's just nature, it's just herbs. And when it comes to like herb combining, I'm really not an expert. I'm not an herbalist, but I think most people can agree that the blend pretty much balances. Like it doesn't taste too cold or too warm. It makes you feel really pretty balanced, and I would say it makes you feel pretty zen.
So is that important then? You just said, balancing herbs like too it doesn't feel too cold or too warm, and that actually, even though I have no idea what the hell that means, it makes sense in when I like drink it and I'm like, "Oh, you're right. Like that doesn't feel too cold or too warm." So is that something that's important when consuming herbs or consuming things like that balance of cold and warm? Like what does that mean?
Yeah, so as you're combining herbs, herbs will have either like a cooling effect on your body's energy or a warming effect. So if it's summertime, your body's probably naturally going to crave more cooling herbs, and if it's the wintertime, more warming herbs. Um, but this blend, I think, is a little bit more on the warmer side, but just more pretty much reaches equilibrium.
No, I would definitely say it's warm. I get that warm winter feeling. So it's a blend of 15 herbs, right? And people use it to support their intermittent fasting in the morning. And I know you also say that it can actually drop blood sugar as well if you consume it after a meal, right?
That's right. Yeah, because think of blood sugar as blood. When blood sugar spikes, autophagy goes down. It's like opposite ends of a teeter totter. So all these herbs also help promote weight loss, keeping the blood sugar stable. It's great for diabetics. So if you have a really big meal that, let's say, is like unplanned, or you just have way too many carbs, it's really good to finish it off with the herbal blend because it's going to help lower your blood sugar.
Wow, that's interesting. So you said when your blood sugar goes up, autophagy goes down. So meaning like for example, people in a diabetic state or that have diabetes, their blood sugar is up, right? And then
I
so
hadn't.
their autophagy levels are lower and lower and lower, chronically lower, so their bodies aren't able to clean out garbage, and then you have more chronic disease that follows.
Yeah, that is why blood sugar regulation is so critically important. And I know I should talk about it more when I educate about this herbal blend, which I will now. But keeping blood sugar levels stable is the name of the game. That is why, like, I believe in it so much that I choose to only eat one meal a day to strategically spike my insulin after my workout. So my blood sugar spikes up one time a day, super high, which is actually good after a strength training workout. But we had it all wrong when we were talking about breakfast is the most important, biggest meal of the day, lunch, same thing, snack, dinner, it doesn't add up when you understand blood sugar and what it does to the body when it's constantly rising and falling. Now, it will work if you have a good amount of muscle mass on your body, or your body is relatively good at stabilizing blood sugar levels, but it just makes a lot more sense in my mind to reduce down the eating window so the blood sugar spikes happen in a narrower window of the day, so at least like that's when the body's not in autophagy, and then the whole rest of the time it is.
See, that's why I get people are joking, right? Like I'm not a person that jokes very much. I think I should probably joke a lot more. I think my life would be better if I joked more. But when people say like I'm hangry, like I need to eat every 2 hours or 3 hours otherwise I get hangry. I'm just like are you hangry or do you have blood sugar instability? And it's like it's so easily just written off as I'm just a hangry person, and then it stops. Like no one thinks past it. It stops.
Mhm.
And I always find myself having the impulse to want to share like, well, have you thought about blood sugar? But then it's like when you get like that, people are like, what, like this freak, like what are you talking about?
Yeah. Hey, I have to hold back a lot too, but that's why I do what I do on Instagram, and I just try to educate. And I'm a lot like you. Like I have a pretty, I guess you could say, serious temperament, but I'm lighthearted most of the time. But this stuff is really serious, and when people are just out there having extreme diabetes and they don't understand, like my whole thing is let's at least bring some like understanding to the picture, because it, when you understand it, it just makes so much more sense and motivates you to get through your first fast, or your first couple of days of intermittent fasting, which over the course of time will change these people's lives completely.
But see, what just blows my mind is like you can say it exactly how you just said it. You explained it. It makes sense. It's not complicated. You're not using crazy scientific terms. You can say it to people, but it doesn't stick. And I sit here and I'm like, why does it stick for some people? Why is it important to some people? And why are other people like I heard some statistics a couple months back when I was watching Joe Rogan, a podcast with Chris Kresser, and he said something like 100 million people are either diabetic or pre-diabetic in this nation. So that's a
Yeah.
third of the population. And diabetes manifests from a pre-diabetic state in about 5 years is the average. So it's like, holy shit. And the money that I think it was something ridiculous, like 100% of the national budget is going to go to Medicare or something. It was something like that, some medicine related part of our budget in by 2030,
Wow.
100% of the budget. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like where is everything going? Like, why don't people care more about this? But I don't have an answer for that.
No, I don't either. And look, I mean, when you understand like the bigger picture of what really drives our country, and when we talk about the medical industry, there's really no like money in telling people to fast. I mean, unless you're just selling the herbs,
It's actually the
which is
opposite, right? They're
yeah,
you're taking away profits from, if you're telling people to fast, you're not able to sell them wheat, you're not able to sell them bread, you're not able to sell them sugar that's going to get them coming back for more and more and more, and then making more and more and more money, more and more profits. It's the opposite effect. So you actually need leaders or ethical companies that care about people and not money. And I just don't think we just don't have that right now.
no, and like you said, it's like you're selling them the sugar and the wheat and all that stuff. But on top of that, also the hospitals, the drugs, the contracts with the doctors, just there's so much going on and people just don't know. So when people know these concepts like blood sugar, autophagy, and like where I see my role in all this is making the complex simple.
I like that. Yeah, you see, it's actually alarming. You don't even notice some things. I didn't notice. We saw a billboard for, I think it was like John Muir, and my husband was like, "This is creepy. It's creepy that a hospital is advertised." And I'm like, you know what? That's creepy as shit. Like, a hospital is being advertised. Like, why are you advertising a hospital?
Beats me.
Right? It's like
Yeah.
there's no answer. There's like it's like silence is the best, I think, for that question. I think we should just all sit here and have a moment of silence that hospitals are being advertised. But oh, anyway, changing gears. So you talk a lot about a mucus-less diet, and I
Hmm.
hear that being thrown around a lot. And I know that's actually what I learned about mucus when I did an iridology test. I got my eyes read, my husband got his eyes read, and she read a lot of mucus in his body from, because he used to love dairy. Like, he grew up on dairy, sour cream and milk and everything. So she saw a lot of mucus in his lymph system and everything. And when we're sick, we cough up mucus, we have mucus in our nose. So how is mucus affecting the body? Why is it slowing us down? What is it doing kind of on a scientific level in the body? And how do we get away, or how do we remove it from our body? Like, what foods can we eat, or how does fasting help? Just that, how do we minimize the mucus and get rid of it?
Yeah. Well, the mucusless diet is a healing system that was written by Arnold Ehret, and not a lot of people know his name yet, but I think as his diet really emerges, he's going to be a big name here soon. And like a mucus is just one word for what a lot of doctors and other healers might call plaque, or he even refers to it in some of his books as junk. And it's just stuff in our body that doesn't really get moved through completely, and it stays in our lymph, which is where we detox from. It's our lymph has the majority of water in our body, and the water in our body creates our blood. So if you want to have good, clean blood, which is really the essence of who we are at a biological level, we want to have little to no mucus. And mucus is formed the most from dairy, it's formed from meat, it's formed from any type of processed foods because mucus is really created as a buffer. It's like the body's biological buffer that's created for something foreign. So use that as a reference point. If you want to minimize mucus or follow the mucus-less diet, eat whole foods, eat fruits. And in his
So it's almost
book,
like a is it like a defense thing? So like when you're introducing foreign substances into your body starts creating mucus in defense of these foreign things. Like what is it doing with the mucus? It's just sitting there or
yeah, mucus is created as a buffer naturally when something foreign hits the body. And a good way to tell if something is mucus forming is you can do an experiment where you put it in a pot on your stove with water and leave it on low overnight or boil it and then just leave it there and see what surfaces to the top of the water.
like potatoes. Like I made potatoes yesterday and the water got all white and foamy and it got kind of like a little layer of muck.
Yeah. So white potatoes are highly mucus forming. White potatoes do have some other benefits that might make them fit into a whole diet approach, but yams and sweet potatoes have minimal mucus. So it's just that experiment on the stove is kind of what's happening when you're digesting food because your digestive system of course is very hot and combustible and it's working to break solid things down, and mucus is just a byproduct of a lot of the combustion that's happening.
You mentioned something about doing, and I've heard this before. I think aren't like a grape juice fast. Isn't that really good for eliminating mucus from your body? And you did a cool video that I saw where you like had the grapes on the side, like the grape residue on the side of the jar, and then you were like putting water, and you're like, this is what it's doing to your digestive system.
Yeah, because I was grinding the whole grapes, like pulp and everything. And so you have the stove analogy, keep that in the back of your mind. But you also have the analogy of what is left on your cup or your plate or your bowl when you're done eating or drinking it, and how sticky is that? How hard is that to get off? And with the grapes, that just rinses right off with water, and you can even leave it out for an hour or two or three, and it still rinses off pretty easily.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it's like when you're done eating, for example, and then you leave your plate out and you don't rinse it, and then everything sticks.
Yeah, like oatmeal.
Like so that's not good. Like those things like are not where you want to
Not the
be
best.
going. Not the
Not the
best.
best. It won't hurt you if you're. Here's the thing. It None of these mucus forming foods will hurt you at all if you've been on a standard American diet or you've been used to mucus.
That's the illusion, right? It's so funny. There are people when I've in the past when I've talked about like what I've been doing, cleansing my body, like it's crazy to think it's January. I have not consumed dairy or gluten or processed sugar with the occasion of a couple slips of cane sugar, but for a whole year. And I my life has just completely shifted. I've been really dabbling into juicing, which I want to talk to you about still. But so many people that are like on the standard American diet, like in the workplace in the past, they're like, I tell people I'm doing this, I feel better, and they're like, I don't feel bad. I feel great. I just feel fine. But it's like they're eating fast food, they're eating from restaurants, they're eating sugar all the time. And I'm just like, it's because you don't even understand how good you can feel. Like people lose sight of what's optimal. I feel like your body gets so used to the baseline. Like for me, I didn't drink water for fucking 25 years. Like I was in a chronic state of dehydration. I don't even remember consciously drinking water. And I don't know how my body even lived with the lack of water I had, but I realized it got used to that state. And now, since I drink so much water, it's now used to that state.
Yeah, the body's very smart and it will adjust to wherever you are in terms of how hydrated you are, how much water you give yourself, how much salt you take in on a regular basis, and mucus. So, yeah, like you said, I mean, people, I think they need to really be motivated or hear hopefully a podcast like this that gets them interested enough to really go for it because they don't have a reference point. Their reference point is the numbness, unfortunately, that they're feeling.
Yeah, I know. And it's not my battle to fight. For some reason, I want to fight it for everybody and just be like, no, you could feel better. Like, trust me. Let me bring you along. But it's not, everybody has to come around in their own time. So what would you say? My mom is watching this right now and she's probably going to love that I'm asking you this question. But, you know, there's all this talk about what diet is the best. Like, how should you eat? You have vegans, you have people that still eat meat, you have vegetarians, you have pescatarians, you have the paleo diet, you have the keto diet. And there's personal stories for everything. You have somebody on keto that's talking about how their epilepsy is cured and they believe everybody should eat keto. You have a
Mm-hmm.
vegan, their life changed. I have a guy actually coming on the podcast in a couple weeks. He completely reversed cancer in his own body, 100% naturally, going plant-based, which is awesome. So it's like he's vegan, he swears by vegan. You have some people with paleo changed their life. So it's like in this climate of all this information and hysteria and everybody's just like pick my diet, that's kind of what I feel like it is. How does one figure out what is best for them? Because I know my mom is always asking me, like, her friends at work are vegan, but then, other people will say, don't go vegan. Or some people still eat meat and there's benefits of that. And then I still kind of fall back on like the B12 thing. It's like if our bodies become deficient in B12, it's hard for me to really fully come full circle with the vegan thing. So it's like, how do you, because I know you're vegan. So how do you figure out what is best for you?
Yeah. So the way you would do that is get rid of all stigmas that's associated with it. And we need to take a look at what you need for your body and the output that you have on a regular basis to determine what you need to be consuming. Like for some people, eating plants only is okay. And for other people, extreme athletes might actually need or benefit from a little meat, fish, eggs can all be beneficial for that type of output. So just taking away stigma, just like there's just levels to it. Because for me, I understand the morality behind veganism, and we really don't need to be killing animals just to eat them and to create a business out of it. That's what originally got me to go vegetarian, even as you could say an extreme athlete, somebody who works out for an hour plus a day. But it just comes down to the output, I think, and what you really require. Because at the end of the day, we're using the food as fuel, but we have logic, so we understand that there's a moral decision that needs to be made here as well.
See, I really like that you said that because I feel like there's a large food shaming movement going on right now from one group to another. You have like meat eaters that shame vegans, you have vegans that shame meat eaters, you have paleo people that, like, I was into CrossFit, so I was in the whole paleo thing, and it was like anybody that doesn't eat paleo, it's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you're not in my cult. You have this whole food shaming thing going on, and I think what the message I hope to spread on my podcast, on my platform, is mindful and intentional eating and listening to your own body. Like, I hear stories of people trying all different types of diet. Like, there's a girl that reached out on my recent post about the plant paradox. She's like, I tried this, it made me feel sick. That's
Mm-hmm.
great. Like, you learn that, you don't do it, you move on. You have people that eat a ton of meat, for example, and they just don't feel good. And they're like, I don't feel good. This isn't for me. You have people that go vegan and develop certain deficiencies based on their lifestyle. Like you were saying, I met a girl recently who she was vegan for years, but she ran like crazy amounts of miles every single day and worked out. And she's like, I was getting dizzy, I was getting anemic. So now she has meat like once a week
Yeah.
and she keeps up her levels and she feels like night and day difference. So, I'm with you on the ethics behind like animal slaughterhouses. Like, I don't agree with that either. I don't really think we need millions and millions of acres of wheat and all of these other farming. I don't think we need that either. But it comes down to two things, I think. One, listening to your body and figuring out what you need on an individual level. And two, doing your best with the food choices that you make in making ethical decisions. And if you can't, you accept kind of that mental responsibility of like, it's like legumes, for example, they're farmed. When farmers farm, animals are killed, right? It's like inevitable, like that happens. But just knowing that going on, it's like I wish it wasn't the case. I don't want to unintentionally kill animals, but that's happening. I know that. I'm like accepting that, and I when I eat legumes, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Is like, where do you draw the line? But an interesting thing about like when I was eating heavy, like a heavy meat based diet, for example, I was, I feel like the gut and the mind start to sync with that. So I was craving more of it because I was constantly feeding that to myself,
Mm.
and the microbiome in the gut starts to become, it just wants more of that, so it starts to attune itself to that. So taking the leap from dairy and meat to saying I'm not going to do this anymore takes some overcoming the physical urges to actually eat meat. Now that I'm pretty much completely removed from that, I don't even crave it at all. But at first it was, I can't even imagine not eating meat. But that just sounds very ridiculous to me now, but that's the actual, I understand that that's what it's like when you're first starting off.
It's interesting you say that because I feel like I mean, there are certain foods I'm not a chemist, so I don't understand the full chemistry, but like, the concept goes for like sugar, but sugar is chemically addictive. So that's a little bit different. But like the pull to sugar is crazy. Like I've been able to pretty much on like I said, with the exception of a couple circumstances last year, eating cane sugar, like pretty much 100% remove processed sugar from my diet. But when I was in the process of doing that, and I would eat sugar again when I hadn't for like a couple of weeks, like, oh my gosh, the craving started just insanely, like insanely. But what you're saying with the whole meat thing and dairy, I feel that way sometimes with legumes. I get on a weird, legumes don't make me feel that great in my physical body. Like I bloat and I just don't think they're that great, but they taste very good. They're very hearty. They feel nourishing to like a weird part of me. Like maybe it's like a weird part of my mind that like craves that nourishing, carby, hearty feeling. And then the more I find that I eat them, the more I almost subconsciously keep making them for meals, and then my body craves them, and then I can't imagine not eating them. Like it's kind of a weird phase I'm going through right now where I'm trying to give up legumes, but then it's like I'm not going to eat legumes tomorrow, and then like I'm like I would have lentils for lunch.
Yeah, because they're there and they're easy and you already made them. Yeah, no,
Well,
I
that
get
and my
that.
mind craves them. Like you said, it's like you can't really, like you were saying with meat, the more that you're feeding into it, the more I feel like your gut microbiome is changing to condition itself to digest those foods or get used to those foods consistently. And then when you don't have them, it starts to change and then you start to feel kind of weird. And I mean, the gut microbiome is fascinating. It's a whole world of its own.
Yeah, it really is. And like some people call them parasites in your gut. I will just use that word for now. if you have come off of sugar for 3 or even 4 weeks, but a little bit of sugar is introduced, all those parasites or that microbiome breeding ground that rewards you for that is still dormant in you.
So
And
like wake up.
oh yeah.
Oof. Yeah, sugar is one thing. It's like there's a lot of dietary war going on with, like I was talking about earlier, this diet superior, this diet superior. One thing, hands down, even though it's funny because my hands are up right now, but hands down, that I can say is like nobody should be eating sugar. Like there's no place for processed sugar, not fruit sugar, but processed sugar. There is zero place in the diet for that. Like there's just no reason. And it makes me intrigued, I guess, or concerned, intrigued to see how mindlessly people eat it, because I was there. Like just I would eat like 4 to 5 pints of ice cream like a week.
Mm-hmm.
Like just straight up, like when we went out to dinner, which was often, getting a pint of ice cream because it's just what I did. And it
Mm-hmm.
kept me in the loop of my body craving dairy, craving sugar, and damn, that loop was really hard to get out of.
Yep. Yep. I trust me. I've been there. It's an addicting pattern. It really is on multiple levels.
Mm-hmm. Cool. You moved back somewhere. That you were good for a
Yeah.
while, by the way, that your reception. So hopefully this works again too. But
Okay.
what I want to hear about is a couple more things. But you told me you worked directly or you trained directly with Wim Hof.
I went to one of his seminars. It was a little over a year ago in Los Angeles, which is about
Sorry
a
to
six.
interrupt, Dan, but you're robotic again, and I don't want to miss this with Wim
Okay.
Hof. And I think people are going to be excited about it.
Okay. Cool. Let me know how I'm doing now.
Well, we're like journeying with you. This is awesome. It's like journey.
Yeah.
The title of this podcast is going to be Journey with Zen Life Dan. That just rolls off the
It's
tongue.
awesome.
I always
We're
call you
turning it.
when I refer to you, I call you Zen Life Dan. I'm like, it's not just Dan, it's Zen Life Dan, which is actually good
That's what I
branding. So
call
that's good.
myself
That's
too.
good that I'm doing that, I think.
Is that better?
Let's see. Talk again.
Is that better? How is
I don't
that?
know. Do
Better?
another sample. I keep interrupting you.
Is that better? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't really see you. You were the best when you were by the in the dark.
I was kind of hurting my legs, but I'll sacrifice.
Oh man. Shoot,
Okay.
right? Well, you probably will get something great from it though if you sacrifice. With sacrifice always, well, I don't want to say always comes something, but typically something great. So you're probably going to drop a
Okay.
knowledge bomb here for viewers right now that they'll be able to hear, and it's going to change their lives.
Does that sound better?
Yes, I think so. Just go for it and I'll let you know if it's not.
Okay. Yeah. So the Wim Hof thing started a little bit over a year ago, where I went to a convention of his in LA, which is about 6 hours from where I'm at in Phoenix. And one thing I'll say is that was a complete shift for me with the importance of breathing, because of there was about 200 people there in his group, and we were just breathing. We weren't doing anything psychedelic or spiritual at all. And something about the synergistic effect of everybody in that room breathing, I went to a place that I never thought I could go to, even on any type of drugs. Um, just from holding my breath at the top of, I think it was like the fifth round of breathing. And basically, it inspired me to come back here, get some people together, and just start doing the same thing that we did at Wim Hof on a smaller scale here locally.
So you're like, that sounds so powerful, but me being kind of the hypochondriac control freak of my body, I would be afraid to like pass out. I mean, can people pass out from this type of breathing? Like I know that's kind of a always like a warning thing. I think I heard a story once of like some guy like doing it in the water and he like died because he like fell into the water when he like passed out. But that also could be propaganda. Whoever's listening to that, don't take that as a golden story.
Yeah, well, it's funny because Wim Hof is often paired with cold therapy in water. So that's one of the things too, is you got to be careful. You can't do his breathing technique in the water because of the risk of drowning. And yeah, to answer your question, you can definitely pass out. There's moments when you're breathing, and if you hold the inhale at the top or the bottom, which is part of the exercise, you kind of just forget about everything. You forget that you're even a person for about 5 or 10 seconds.
What? So
Yeah.
what are the benefits? Are the benefits of this breathing, is it to get to a spiritual level? Is it to, you know, get to, like you said, a different place that you've ever seen? Is there, I mean, it doesn't, it's relaxing, right? But it's like, I don't know if it sound, I mean, to me, it doesn't sound that relaxing, if I'm being honest, but like maybe it is, and I just don't know.
Yeah, it is relaxing. So basically by doing the breathing, you're filling your cells with oxygen. So you're hyper oxygenating your body way more than if you were just relaxing and breathing pretty normal or shallow. So you can imagine when all of your cells have more oxygen, you're able to recover. You're able to create homeostasis in the body. There's all this happening, and you're charging up the mitochondria in your body as well, the powerhouse of the cell. Let me know if you can still hear me.
Oh yeah, I can still hear you. I think I think yeah, you went out for a second. No, but I heard most of
Okay.
that. So base
There's a couple more things too.
okay.
Basically, it's like I said, it's starting with the breathing and it gets paired with cold therapy. So it's also numbing your cold receptors to allow you to go into the water, which the cold therapy in and of itself has benefits for healing as well. So it's a nice like 1-2 punch, but you can just do the breathing by itself for physical and spiritual benefits.
So the breathing isn't it really deep inhales and then harsh quick exhales?
Yeah, it's basically like if you want to just do it through your mouth, it would sound like and you can go even faster than that. But one thing that I teach when we do classes, we'd like to do 2 classes a month here in Phoenix. And basically, it's better to master the breath and go a little bit slower and get quality breaths than just to go for speed.
See, that's the opposite of what I guess I'm conditioned to believe to make the body relax. So you always, or at least I've always in meditations, in yoga, it's always focus on the long exhales and decent sized inhales. Like what I do a lot of lately is I've been doing 4, 7, 8 breaths. So I do an inhale of 4, I hold for 7, and then I exhale for 8. So that there's really a focus on that long exhale. And that really relaxes me. But it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting that the opposite concept of breath also relaxes you. When technically in my mind, I'm like, that feels like hyperventilation, which maybe it is. And maybe that's what you're doing for the short term. And that's probably why you can pass out, because it is short term hyperventilation, right?
Yeah, well, let's put it to the test right now, shall we?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, maybe. Yeah. Okay, sure. All right.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So just through your mouth, inhale, just through your mouth, exhale. Don't even, we'll bring the nose into it later. So
Okay.
basically,
So inhale and exhale through my mouth.
yep. So exhale, sharp inhale as fast as you can. Fully in, fully in, and letting go. Fully in, all the way in. This 3 more. 3, 2, 1. Good. Now exhale. Hold your exhale. Hold, hold, hold. To inhale. Take a and hold that. And so what you're going to feel is as you start to practice this more and more, simply one breath, one or two
Wow, I got
breaths.
really that was like that was really intense. That was really intense. I'm like I like forgot that I was doing a podcast for a second. I'm not kidding. Like it was like I wouldn't say I forgot I was doing a podcast, but I got really like I fell into my heart rate and I got very in like I felt inside of myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Wow. And I feel tingly. That's the little normal. Is that normal?
that's normal.
Wow. I can't see you anymore.
Okay, but can you hear me?
I can hear you, but your little picture comes up.
I think it's because I'm on low battery mode.
Oh no. Okay. Well, I guess we won't see you, but I can hear you. So that's good. I don't since you're on low battery mode, I wow. Holy shit, I can't believe I did that live. That's actually big for me because I have a fear of fainting. So I'm like, I'm glad I'm still here.
Yeah, you're still
Very
here.
cool. Um, wow. Okay. That was really awesome. Holy shit.
Yeah, so that's basically like a sneak peek of what we do at my breathing classes, and it's just really nice to get a group of people together because what you just felt right there is really amplified when you get two people doing it. It's even more amplified when you get three. But if we get a group of 10, 12, 15 people, it's really amazing just what the breath can do.
I believe it. I mean, damn. That was cool. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. One more thing
Yeah.
I have on my list that I actually want to talk about is sun gazing and moon gazing. So
Okay.
sun gazing for like healing the eyes because I'm on this journey of like healing my eyes and the whole iridology thing. So if you can just speak on that, that's kind of the last thing I actually want to talk about.
Okay, cool. So sun gazing is something I discovered last summer. And if you look to any type of esoteric knowledge or religions, ancient cultures, they were as a way to bring health to the body, balance to the mind, and really just heighten and ascend their spirituality. And it makes sense because a lot of people are saying that light is the new medicine of the future. And if you really boil it down, where are you going to find more powerful natural light than the sun? And a lot of people don't stare at the sun. It's bad for your eyes. You're going to go blind. Well, if you stare at the sun in the first rising of the sunset and the very, very last setting of the sunset, it's actually much, much easier. And basically, it's very therapeutic for your eyes. And we were speaking on mucus earlier. It actually has the ability to wear some mucus away from the retina of your eyes. So it's going to help your vision as well.
Yeah, I see you talking about that. That's it's so interesting how that connects. So I know you said when if you're new, you kind of start closer to sunset or sunrise, but then you can train yourself to kind of go to the middle of the day.
Yeah, you can train yourself to go to the middle of the day. I would not recommend it for you guys out there that want to start this. Like, I would just go right at sunset or first thing in the morning, which is actually how I started because I wanted to do it to help my circadian rhythm. And I really wanted to ingrain with the rhythm of nature and the sun. So I was up at about 6 o'clock every morning to catch it coming over the mountains here in Phoenix. And it was doing great things for my workouts, my body. I actually lost a lot more body fat. I was extremely tired around 10 o'clock at night. So it got me into a really good circadian rhythm. But yeah, it has tons and tons of benefits.
So it like regulated you.
Yeah, it regulated me. And I'm such a believer in the circadian rhythm because when you can be on this natural rhythm with the earth, so much aligns in your health. Because if pick anything, pick your digestion, pick your workout, pick the time you go to sleep, you can trace back to your body's biological clock. And if one of those things is off, chances are everything's pretty much off.
So how does moon gazing work the same way?
So similar. So with moon gazing, not a lot of people are talking about moon gazing yet. And it's basically something that allows you to sort of, I think you're getting more of a spiritual benefit by looking at the moon, but the moon is also giving you the same type of rays that the sun gives you, just on a little bit less of a intense scale, actually a lot less. So thinking about it like that, moon gazing is something that everybody can do because nobody's going to tell
Stare at
you,
the moon, yeah.
oh, don't look at the moon, you're going to go blind. But you're getting the same type.
You're kind of breaking up a little bit, but I heard most of that. This
Okay.
is really, really cool stuff, man. I feel like we talked pretty much about everything I wanted to talk about. Is there anything else like we haven't covered that maybe you wanted to speak on? And maybe you can kind of lead into where people can find you, the services that you offer, and just whatever you want to share.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashley. So, yeah, guys, connect with me most notably on Instagram, Zen Life Dan. You guys can check out what I do. You guys can get on my YouTube channel. It's in my bio on Instagram. And I have videos on sun gazing, fasting, workout videos, how to transition to vegan, some meditation guides, um, a lot of other stuff on there. But pretty much in the next upcoming year, you guys can follow along on the YouTube channel as we get a lot more into guided meditations and just how to ascend your body, mind, spirit in practical ways. Like I said, I want to take all these complex concepts and just give them to you in digestible ways that you guys can understand and implement. But the other thing that you guys might be interested in is one of the two autophagy blends. It's going to help make your intermittent fast and long term fast easier. The first is the classic, which is the herbal blend, and the new one that next week is a red blend, which dissolves in water. So it's a little bit different from the herbal blend. It's a little less warm feeling and more of like a sports drink type of feel. It's a little bit sweeter. So I'm really excited about that to help get people going on the intermittent fast.
Well, cool. I'm gonna put all your information in the description box and on Instagram and everything. But cool. This was very interesting. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate the knowledge. I'm sure everybody else does. I think we had a lot of viewers. We have 5 current viewers, so that was awesome. But I'm going to stop the broadcast and then you and I will keep talking. But thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time, Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley.
All right. We are going off in 3, 2, 1.